Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Cooking with Plants for 2026. My name is Kelly Wilson, and I am a registered dietitian based in Southeast Michigan with Trinity Health. I work within our lifestyle medicine department. If you're not familiar with lifestyle medicine, it is a medical subspecialty that focuses on disease treatment, prevention, and reversal through 6 key pillars. Nutrition, which is what this whole series is about, is one of those pillars. But in our practice, we also talk to folks about how they're moving their body, how they're sleeping, how they're connecting with other people and the world around them. We work with folks to decrease consumption of risky substances as well. So we really take this whole person approach to health and well-being through this lifestyle medicine lens. This program, like I said, is all about cooking with plants. So we're really diving deep into that nutrition pillar. I have been a registered dietitian for a little over 13 years. And before I worked with Trinity, I was farming and doing local food systems work. So I'm going to bring some of that perspective into some of our conversations throughout this series. Before we dive into the content, I just want to do a couple quick housekeeping things so that we all have access to the tech resources that we need. Many of you requested closed captioning for these sessions, so I just want to give you some tips on how to turn that on. You should see when you're in the Teams application, 3 dots on the far right-hand side of your toolbar at the top of your screen that say more underneath them. If you hover over those 3 dots, a drop-down menu should appear, and there's a language and speech line. If you click on that, it'll open up an option for you to turn on live captions. If you are watching the recording, you should be able to turn on captions either on YouTube or Vimeo, which is the other streaming platform that we're using. If you have a question during this class, I want you to ask it. This class is meant to be interactive. Everybody is muted and everyone's videos are turned off. You won't be able to unmute or turn on your video, and that is because we're recording these classes, and that's to protect your privacy when we share out the recording. If you have a question, you can use the chat function, which again, if you go to that toolbar at the top of your screen, you should see a word bubble that says chat underneath of it. If you click that, you can type your question and I'll get notified and I'll pause and answer the question. I ask that if you're going to put a question in that chat box, you make sure that it's relevant to the topic at hand and it's relevant to the whole group. If you have a specific question that is related to a health condition or a unique experience that you're going through, if you email us at lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org, that's the best way to get those types of questions answered. Again, that email is lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org. If you are a Trinity Health colleague joining us, welcome. Glad that you're here. You have the added benefit of receiving some points towards keeping our insurance premium low just for participating in this class, whether you tuned in live or you're watching the recording. You get 250 points for every class that you participate in. And to get those points, all you need to do is email that lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org email address, which is on the screen in case you missed it. I always like to remind folks that while a lot of the information we're going to talk about in this class series is broadly applicable, it is general information. So if you have a specific health condition or you were newly diagnosed with a specific health condition and haven't yet received personalized advice from a dietitian or from your physician on the nutrition plan that you should follow, make sure that you're having those conversations first to ensure that you're following the nutrition plan that is best for your specific needs. If you don't have a connection yet to a registered dietitian and you would like support finding one, even if you're not based in Michigan, where I am based, I'm happy to try to help you connect to someone in your area. You can email that lifestyle medicine email address, and I'm more than happy to help you connect to a resource. Okay. I am really excited to get to be teaching this class series. This is, I think, our fourth year doing this. Nope, this is our third year of doing this class series. And every year it's so much fun to get to share these plant forward recipes with you and really break down this myth that cooking is time consuming and you have to have fancy equipment or fancy ingredients to make delicious meals. My goal for you throughout this series is really to make it easy for you to get these plant forward foods that we know promote health and prevent disease onto your plate. So we're going to talk about a lot of really practical, easy ways that you can kind of sneak some of these foods into meals you're already making and kind of stretch your comfort zone a little bit to try some new foods. I really believe anybody can cook. It just takes practice and a little bit of time. And I'll repeat this over and over again, but really to make sustainable change, if this is new for you, if these foods we're going to talk about are unfamiliar and you don't have a taste for them yet, that's okay. Start where you are, start with the foods that you know and see how you can adapt and tweak those. That's going to lead to the most sustainable change. And be patient and kind as you're making these changes. Change takes time. The most sustainable change is slow and steady. Okay. That all or nothing approach we know from behavioral change science doesn't work. So pick one small thing to change, focus on, making that routine, and then you try and add a new habit, a new food, and build on from there. Okay. I really want you to focus on persistence over perfection. We'll talk a little bit about what a plant forward eating pattern looks like in a minute. And none of us on our team, and I think most dietitians that you would talk to, aren't trying to convince you to have quote unquote the perfect diet. And there really is no perfect one size fits all diet. We're really focused in this class on encouraging you again to eat more of those health promoting plant foods, eat as many of those plant foods as possible. And if you have days where, you don't have as many of those plant foods on your plate, that's okay. Just the next day, the next meal, try to add some more of those foods back in. Again, persistence over perfection, and there's always an opportunity to begin again. One day, one meal doesn't mean you have to throw in the towel. So tonight's class is really focused on helping prepare you for making a whole host of really delicious plant forward meals. So this is kind of our getting started session. We're going to talk a little bit about what whole food plant forward eating looks like. So we're all on the same page because many of us are coming with different levels of knowledge or different levels of culinary experience. And we're just trying to kind of level set. So as we go throughout the rest of this series, we all have the same baseline level of information. So we'll start there, and then we're going to do some show and tell. You're with me tonight in my home kitchen, so I'm going to show you some of the tools and some of the ingredients that I like to cook with and that will be featured throughout this series in many of our recipes. And during that time, again, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. If you have suggestions for ingredients or equipment that you really love, I love to hear from you what's working, so please feel free to share that in the chat as well. And then we're going to do a knife skills demo again, just for some baseline skill building, so we have that foundational information to use as we move into some of our other classes. All right, I don't see any questions or comments yet, so we'll move right in to a whole food plant forward dietary pattern. So this picture that you see here on the screen is one example of what a whole food, plant-forward dietary pattern could look like. Now, I realize when you're looking at this picture, one thing that might stand out is that all these foods are raw looking, especially our fruits and veggies. I am not advocating for a raw food diet here. It is just, this plate is just a really good example of the general types of foods that would be included in a whole food dietary pattern. Bert, if you're not seeing the picture, let's see. You should be, if you're joining from your phone, you might not be able to see the picture because of that. Is everybody else able to see the slides? If somebody could drop in the chat that like, yes, you're seeing the slides. Yes, people are seeing the slides. Great. Okay. Bert, it might be again because you're joining from your phone, and if that's not the case, and you can't get to the slides, send me an email, that lifestyle medicine email address, and we'll try to troubleshoot for future classes. Thanks for the positive feedback, and it looks like Pam has some suggestions, Bert, for you as well. Appreciate everybody trying to help troubleshoot. Okay, so this whole food, plant-forward dietary pattern. This plate is an example of some of the foods that would be included in that dietary pattern. So things like our fresh fruits and vegetables, you see that's what makes up the most of that plate. They can be frozen, they can be cooked, they don't have to be raw, they could come from a can, and we'll talk about that later. We need our protein food, so our whole proteins like beans, nuts and seeds, lentils, soy foods like tofu and tempeh. And finally, our whole grains. We also sprinkled throughout here have herbs and spices, which I'll show you some examples of that when we get to our ingredients. Okay, this way of eating can be summed up as eat real food, mostly plants. So you can think of that real food as close to the form from that came off of the farm as possible, okay? Generally, these types of foods, if we were to pick up a package, and this is a very general rule of thumb, but they have short ingredients lists. And we can think of, I think one good example to show like a real food versus a ultra processed food like substance would be tofu or tempeh versus like a processed Morningstar veggie burger. Both have soy in them, but the tofu, the tempeh, that's a more whole food version of a soy food than that Morningstar veggie burger, which has gone through a lot of processing. And it looks like, there we go. Don't know what happened. Apologies. There we go. I also want to emphasize this idea of dietary pattern versus diet. Diets are often short-term, unsustainable things. In this class, in the field of lifestyle medicine, we really talk about this pattern of eating. So again, trying to make the choices where you're adding more of these plant-based foods over time. This is a lifelong commitment, a lifelong journey, and you don't have to go from 0 to 60 overnight. You have time to take those small, steady steps to get to as close as possible to this plate that you see here on the screen. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about processed foods, which are really the opposite of those real foods that ultra processed foods are really the opposite of those real foods that we were just talking about. And they've been in the headlines quite a lot. So just want to level set and, dispel any confusion around these foods. There's processed foods and then there's ultra processed foods, and processed foods, really anytime we alter the state of a food, whether that's cooking, we choose to can something, we're going to flash freeze it or put it in a package, any way that we're changing it from its raw whole food form is technically processing, and there's varying degrees of processing. So using that definition, whole wheat bread and a homemade soup are technically processed foods because they're not in their raw form, but those are going to be on this kind of minimally processed spectrum. So we can think of processed foods on this spectrum, okay? And if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, these are our minimally processed foods. So they're still fairly close to the form they came off, like they were picked off the tree or came out of the ground. These are minimally processed. So these are things like our whole grain bread, our frozen fruits and veggies, tofu, nut butters, some pasta sauces, things like that. And then our ultra processed foods are going to be things that are very far from that form from the farm. So these are things like white bread, highly processed meats, sugar sweetened beverages, our sugary snacks, cakes, things like that. So when we're making choices about the processed foods that we're including, opting for those minimally processed foods on the left-hand side of the screen can still be a great way to meet our nutritional needs. I want you to rest assured that some of these minimally processed foods, because they're really convenient, are totally fine to include in your dietary pattern. And we'll show you a lot of examples tonight of some of those minimally processed but time-saving foods. So this picture, I really like this because it helps drive home this idea that dietary patterns exist on a spectrum, okay? And again, we're not trying to encourage you to go from 0 to 1,000 overnight. Any step you can take towards this ultra processed food plate that you see on the left, also called the Standard American Diet, which the acronym is SAD, because it is kind of sad, because that's the dietary pattern that's full of a lot of sugar and things like saturated fat, which are found in animal products. And that high sugar, high saturated fat diet is what leads to a lot of the chronic illness that we experience. So any step we can take away from that dietary pattern towards this dietary pattern you see on the right that has more of these whole plant foods that are rich in colors and high in fiber is going to be a step towards our health, okay? Any step forward is a positive step. So just take the step that you can now and build upon that success. This slide, I just wanted to show you some like real world examples. We're gonna cook through a lot of delicious real world examples throughout this series, but I wanted you to have some visuals now of what this whole food, plant forward eating pattern looks like in real life. It is colorful, it is vibrant, it's flavorful, it's really, really delicious. I am here to tell you that eating for your health does not have to mean that you're eating bland food. Everything in this class is going to be flavorful and delicious, I promise. So why do we care so much about these plant foods? Why are our recommendations pointing us to consume more of these foods? The research is abundantly clear that eating more plant foods leads to lower rates of chronic disease, and fiber is a huge part of that reason. So fiber is a type of carbohydrate that resists digestion, and instead of being digested and adding energy for our body, it actually feeds the bacteria in our gastrointestinal tract, which then results in a lot of these benefits that you see here on the screen. So fiber helps keep us full. It actually is responsible for stimulating GLP-1 production, and that is part of the pathway that helps keep our hunger signals in check. Fiber is really important for our blood sugar regulation, so we don't have kind of highs and lows and energy crashes. It keeps our blood sugar stable, which can help prevent insulin resistance and diabetes. Really important for helping us balance our cholesterol levels and prevent cardiovascular disease. especially that soluble fiber, which kind of helps mop up the cholesterol. And there's really solid evidence showing that fiber is linked to decreased risk for certain types of cancer, particularly colon cancer. And that when we're feeding our gut bacteria this good fiber, they also produce compounds that help bolster our immune system. And then finally, we have good bowel movements. We're more regular when we've got enough fiber in our diet. The average American consumes about 15 grams of fiber a day, and the research shows that we want to ingest about 25 to 40 grams of fiber per day. Those are the minimum. So if you're someone who maybe is closer to that 15 grams of fiber a day, again, don't try to get 30 grams tomorrow. Start slow. Add maybe an apple, which is about 4 grams of fiber, a few more days this week, and drink water, because as you increase your fiber intake, you want to make sure you're drinking water so you don't get constipated and bloated. So slowly increase your fiber intake over the course of a few weeks, then add some more to get yourself towards that goal. Take a stepwise approach, okay? Low and slow. Another reason plants are so important for our health and why we focus on them are these phytonutrients. So have you ever noticed that our fruits and veggies come in a rainbow of colors? Each one of those colors corresponds to a different phytonutrient that is connected to some way of decreasing chronic illness in our body. So a lot of these phytonutrients positively influence gene expression to turn on our body's internal antioxidant production system. They act as antioxidants themselves. So our body cells are protected from damage. These phytonutrients also are really responsible for lowering inflammation, which is the root cause of a lot of chronic health conditions. So when you're thinking about these plant foods, and maybe you're trying to challenge yourself to add some more to your plate, one really fun way to think about this is to eat the rainbow. So to challenge yourself, can you go through Roy G. Biv every single day? Can you eat a different whole plant food in each color category? And not only is that fun and you'll maybe experience some new foods, your eyes will appreciate all that color on your plate. It's going to taste delicious, and you're getting a whole host of helpful compounds that are helping you prevent or treat disease. Just like all things in life, variety is key. Variety keeps things interesting. Variety ensures that we cover all of our nutrient needs, right? So another way that you can think about meeting our nutrition needs with plant foods is to aim for about 30 different plant foods a week. And I see the chat has some things in it, so I'm just going to pause for a second. Oh, okay, great. I really appreciate, Bert, I'm glad that you got situated with the slides. And Sarah, we will talk about nut butters in a second, but so hold on to that. I'll try to remember your thought there. Okay. Again, I just want to reiterate, if this way of eating is new to you, that the research in behavior change tells us over and over again that small, steady steps is the way to do it. That's what leads to sustainable change. So please take any pressure off of yourself to completely overhaul everything today. Pick one thing that feels realistic for you to start with. If that's, adding a new color to your plate, or you're going to try one new fruit or vegetable this week, whatever it is, pick that one small thing. Okay. If you're thinking about foods that you already like to make, think about how you can sprinkle in a few more veggies or add some more spices to those meals. Start with what you know, adapt and build from there. Okay. We already talked about being patient and persistent, but I'm gonna hammer that home again. Change is hard and it takes time, but you can do hard things. And if you're kind to yourself and you focus on, course correcting anytime it feels like you maybe get off track a little bit, you will get there. Okay, it takes time, and it takes time too for our taste buds to develop a preference for some of these new flavors you might be experiencing. So give yourself the gift of exploring, experimenting, look at this like an adventure, and know that, it's going to maybe take a few weeks of consistently trying something before your taste buds will adapt and you might start to enjoy that food. If you haven't tried broccoli in 10 years, give yourself the chance to experience it now or experience it in a new preparation. You might be surprised and that your taste buds have changed and you actually like broccoli now, or you like this new preparation style that you have never had before. So give yourself the gift of exploration. If you're looking for some resources on your journey, this slide has a few cookbooks that our team really loves, and some online blogs that have some really great plant-based recipes as well. We do have a website for you, and the website will be in the follow-up email. The website links some of these cookbooks and the recipe blogs as well. This is what that homepage of the website looks like. When you get the link to this in the follow-up email and you go to the top of the screen, there's a section that says Start Here. That's going to recap a lot of what we talked about tonight, and that's where the cookbook recommendations live. There's some videos on basic knife skills, if that's something you want to brush up on. A whole host of different resources there. This website's going to be where all of our recipes for this class series live, and all of our recordings are going to be here as well. If you are joining from your computer and you have a smartphone and you want to scan that QR code, that'll take you right to the website right now, or you can wait and I will send out the link to that within the next week. And it looks like we're getting some love for some of the cookbooks already. Love and Lemons is definitely a great one. Okay, so now we're moving into show and tell, and I've got a lot to pack in to this half hour, so I will do my best to be quick, but it looks like there's a quick question. Oh, Linda asked, is there a difference between whole food plant-based and whole food plant forward? No, Linda, it's really the same thing. It's just a word choice. Okay, so we're just I think both of those are really just emphasizing that this dietary pattern is trying to focus on adding more of those plant foods to the plate. But that's a good question because I know it can get a little confusing with all the different labels out there. So some basic things, if you're starting from scratch and you're setting up your kitchen, you want to make sure you got a can opener, right? Because we're going to talk about some like canned food options you want to have on hand. You want to have some mixing bowls, and you want to have a baking sheet if you have access to an oven. Also, some helpful things to have: measuring cups, measuring spoons. You want both dry measuring and then liquid. So this is a liquid measuring cup. They are different. So if you have the means to invest in both a liquid and a set of dry measuring cups, I'd recommend doing that. Then you also want to make sure that you've got some utensils. So I like wooden and silicone utensils because no matter what type of pan I'm using, these are not going to scratch those pans. So I tend to use like the silicone tools for things that might stain the wooden ones, but they're really versatile and interchangeable. This is a spatula that's really good for scraping and stirring. So you want to have something that you can, scrape the sides of a bowl with easily. This shape is really good for if I'm sauteing stuff in a pan. A whisk is really helpful for when we're doing our baked goods, or when we're using aquafaba, like chickpea brine, and we're trying to get it kind of like an egg white foam. So we're trying to incorporate a lot of air. Whisks are helpful for that. A box grater can be very helpful for getting different textures for salads. We'll use this a lot in some of our upcoming classes. A vegetable peeler. So most people are familiar with the stick vegetable peelers. I really prefer, and personal preference, but I prefer these Y-shaped vegetable peelers because I feel like you have more control with them. So I think this was a pack on Amazon there were 3 of them in here, and I think it was $5. So they're really inexpensive. The blades are very sharp, and I feel like you have a little bit more control with these. So it goes a little bit faster. Having a set of tongs. These are silicone tipped tongs. So again, they're not going to scratch your pan. Really helpful for when we're cooking large batches of leafy greens. A zester or microplane. This is really helpful for grating some spices, but also for zesting. So getting off that top layer of citrus, which adds a nice kind of pop of bright flavor. We'll use that in some of our dressing recipes and some of our other recipes. A citrus juicer. So citrus juice is a really nice way to balance out some of the bitterness that's inherent in some of our brassica vegetables. Also, citrus is really nice in a lot of dressings and sauces. So a citrus juicer can come in handy if you want to have fresh. You put the cut side of the lemon, lime, orange, whatever, down towards these holes and then press down. So it's a little counterintuitive. This is also really affordable. I think one of these is about $10. A steamer basket, something that you can put into a saucepan like this. So you want a saucepan. Excuse me. This is a 2-quart saucepan. So I'd say like a 2, 3, and a 4-quart saucepan. All are good sizes. A steamer basket fits inside here so that you can steam veggies. If you don't have a steamer basket, I get away with just using a wire mesh strainer. I put it on top of my saucepan here, and then I put my veggies, a little bit of water, my lid on top. So if you don't want to invest in a separate thing and you've got your wire mesh strainer, that can work as well. You also want to make sure you've got some pans, some saute pans. So that one is that's a stainless steel saute pan. If you want something non-stick, a carbon steel or a cast iron is a great place to start. If you want to go with a less toxic nonstick option, you can also look for ceramic nonstick, like the brand Green Pan is one company. There's also like a stoneware coated nonstick pan that are good options too. The ceramic and the stone don't quite last as long as traditional nonstick pans. If you have traditional nonstick pans, as long as they are not scratched and you don't overheat them, they can be safe to use. So you don't have to throw those away if that's what you already have. You can feel safe using them. Just make sure that you're using your wooden spatulas or silicone spatulas so you're not scratching those. Once they're scratched, you definitely want to throw them away because that's when they have the potential to leach some of the chemicals that can be harmful to our health. All right, I'm going to set aside a couple things. We'll talk about cutting boards in a second. This is a nice to have, definitely not a have to have, but this is a immersion blender. So this is the wand with a little blade here for blending, and this is the motor. You put the 2 pieces together. Typically they have an unlock button that you have to press down as you press the on button for this blade to swirl. This is the base that comes with it. So I really love these for making dressings and blending up quick sauces. You can put all your ingredients in this blender base, stick this in, blend away. And what's nice with this shape is you don't make a mess and get dressing everywhere. I've tried using this in shallow bowls and you just end up flinging oil and other ingredients all over yourself. This can also be helpful for root vegetables that you're mashing and you want to blend into a puree, if you're making a soup. If you are in a household where there are texture challenges, but you want to add some lentils, say, to your pasta sauce, this can be a really helpful tool for blending those cooked lentils in. It's smooth and no one's the wiser, but you're getting that protein and fiber into the meal. What else do we have here? Oh, a colander. So this is really helpful for draining those steamed vegetables, for draining your pasta, for washing your fruit and vegetables. I like this one because it has little feet on it. So then when I put it in the sink, it's not sitting in the water that I'm rinsing. It's kind of above that. So the food is not touching the dirty water. Also have a couple things here related to food storage. So I'm a big fan of glass containers. If you have plastic food storage containers, that's fine. If you can avoid putting hot food in them, like wait till your food cools down before you put them in the plastic containers, so the heat doesn't leach out some of the harmful plastic chemicals. And do not put your plastic storage containers in the dishwasher. The high temperature in the dishwasher also will leach out some of those harmful plastic chemicals, and then all your dishes and things in the dishwasher will be coated in that. So if you have them, hand wash them and use them when your food is cool, and then don't microwave them. To microwave food or store hot food, or if you just want to avoid plastic altogether, glass storage containers, like this is a pint mason jar, work really well. There's also all sorts of different companies that make glass storage containers, like Pyrex is one brand that come in nesting sets with lids, so lots of options out there. I like, one of our classes, we're going to make some overnight oats as an example of a fast breakfast. These kind of pint containers are really helpful for that. So if you think that's something you might want to do, investing in a few of these could be helpful. Another way we can reduce plastic, this is a food hugger. So they're little lids. So say I cut an onion and I don't want to use plastic wrap, I can put the cut side, I'm only using half my onion, I put the other half cut side down inside this food hugger, and it's like putting a little piece of plastic wrap on top of that food. They have different shapes and sizes. This is a piece of cloth that's coated in beeswax, also a plastic wrap alternative. All sorts of different companies make this. This, I think, is from Bees Wrap. Okay, so lots of options. You can also, if you are crafty and you want a fun winter project, this is something you can also make at home. And then finally, I've got this reusable plastic bag. So instead of using single-use plastic bags, this is a silicone bag that can be reused. There's brands like Stasher, which are a little bit more of an investment. And this is a knockoff brand that I found at my local grocery store, and it works. Okay, let's talk about food ingredient. Oh, we didn't talk about knives, and that's the most important thing here. So when you're thinking about knives, if you are looking to invest in some new knives, you really only need two. You need a chef's knife, which is right here. And a chef's knife is identified by this kind of curved blade here and this pointy tip. This is an 8-inch chef knife, and that's typically the size that's appropriate for most home chefs. For me, anything longer than 8 inches is a little too unwieldy and feels a little dangerous. So depending on your hand size and what you're preparing, the length of the knife might differ for you, but for most people, an 8-inch chef knife is perfect. The other knife you'd want to invest in is a paring knife. So this is a 3-inch paring knife. This is a chef's knife is for kind of your general workhorse, chopping, mincing, slicing, dicing, all of those tasks. The paring knife is more for peeling and fine tasks like coring a tomato, as an example. You could also invest in a serrated knife if that's something that fits within your budget and your storage space. If you have a really sharp chef knife, that can also function in place of that serrated knife. Serrated knives have kind of saw-like teeth on the edge. That's the serration. And they can be really helpful for cutting through crusty bread or thin-skinned fruits and veggies like a tomato without like smushing and crushing. But if your chef's knife is really sharp, it'll also do both of those things. When you are shopping for a knife, so if you're going to look for a chef's knife, most important thing is that it feels good in your hand. So we hold a chef's knife by wrapping our 3 fingers around the handle, pinching between our thumb and our first finger right here towards the heel. So this is the heel of the knife. This is the tip of the knife. This curved blade edge. This is the sweet spot where we're trying to cut everything. Holding it, we're going to pinch between that thumb and first finger, wrap our 3 fingers around the handle, okay? So you're going to hold the knife, see how that feels in your hand. Does the weight feel balanced from tip to heel? Or does it feel like you're kind of like heavy in the heel or heavy in the tip? Does it feel like a moderate weight in general in your hand? Too heavy is going to make your arm and wrist too tired. Too light is also going to fatigue your wrist and arm. So really, like whatever feels good for you is what you're going for. When you're thinking about construction, stainless steel is resistant to rust and it's fairly durable. It's also fairly affordable. So there's all sorts of different knives you can get, but for a general all-purpose knife, a stainless steel is a good bet. If you can find a knife, see how there's these 3 little rivets here, and you can see that the blade of the knife extends through the handle. That type of construction is also known as full tang, and this gives the knife a little bit more durability. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit more stable because that blade goes all the way through the handle. So another thing that you can look for. But really, you don't have to spend a lot of money on knives. The most important thing is that your knife is sharp. A sharp knife is a safe knife. And we can keep our knives sharp by hand washing them. Never put your knife in the dishwasher. That will dull it. And never put it in the sink where it can bang against other dishes and get hidden and maybe cut somebody. Always hand wash it, dry it, and then store it in something like you can see this knife rack. So we've got a magnetic strip on our wall here. You can store it in something like that or a knife block. Honing your knife, which is basically straightening out the blade because the blade can get bent over time. So using a honing steel regularly also can help maintain your knives, as can getting them regularly sharpened professionally. Depending on where you get your knives, some companies will do that for you. Locally here where I'm based, our vacuum shop actually sharpens knives, and there's somebody at the farmer's market who does that as well. So you can do a quick Google search and find those folks in your area. Let's do a quick knife demo, and then we'll talk about some food options here to have in your pantry. So you should be seeing my cutting board. That's another really important piece of culinary equipment to have on hand. My preference is to use a wood cutting board because that's going to protect your knives from getting dull. It's also not going to get any microplastics into our food, and it just looks really pretty when you're cutting too. So to cut this onion, I'm going to take my thumb and my first finger, pinch my knife towards that heel, wrap my 3 fingers around the blade. My non-cutting hand is making a claw. Okay, I'm going to tuck my fingertips underneath so they don't get in the way of the blade here. And I'm going to use my pinky finger and my thumb to hold the onion in place, okay? And I'm going to slice the tip of this onion, let's see, off. And I'm going to take that cut side, place it down on my cutting board. And then I'm going to peel off this papery layer, and you can go down a couple layers to get to, we just want to make sure that that skin is off because that texturally and flavor wise wouldn't be great in whatever dish we're preparing. Now I'm going to leave a finger's width from the root end that is not cut. And I'm going to use these guidelines. I see how the onions kind of grooved. I'm going to use those as guidelines for making my cuts. I'm going to take the tip of my chef's knife and slice on those lines, angling around the onion and then slicing all the way down until I feel the cutting board. And you can kind of hear that. Okay, and then I'm going to turn the onion, tip of my chef's knife on the cutting board, and make thin slices. I'm going to use that rocking motion of the chef's knife. This is the beautiful thing about the chef's knife, and part of why it is the workhorse and makes slicing and dicing so much easier is that nice rocking motion that we can get because of the curved blade. So there you go. That's your quick knife skills demo. Again, the website has some additional videos. We also will do that. We'll cut an onion, or we'll cut a pepper, minced garlic. We'll cut a lot of things in almost every class, so you'll get more exposure to that as well. All right, let's talk about some pantry items that you want to have on hand. Having a well-stocked pantry, and I apologize, the onion is getting to my eyeballs a little bit. Having a well-stocked pantry is the first step in pulling together fast, easy meals and making sure that you always can have the healthy choice be the easy choice. So we're going to start with some whole grains. Pasta. So this is a brown rice pasta. If you're gluten-free, brown rice pasta is a great whole grain option. There's also bean-based pastas, which provide a lot of protein and fiber. Whole wheat pasta would be another great option. We've got some whole grain crackers. So this is, again, an example of a minimally processed food, but great for snacks and for a quick addition to a meal. When we are looking for whole grains in the grocery store in packaged form, you're going to look for this nutrition facts label. Okay, there's some clues on this label that can help us identify whole grains. First is to look for, sometimes not all foods will have this whole grain stamp. And if it says 100% whole grain right there, yeah, it's, it's 100% whole grain, right? You can also, let's look at this ingredients list. We want that very first word to say whole grain, and then insert whatever the grain is. This is wheat, Triscuits, so that's what we're looking for on here. Another place we can go is to our section where it says total carbohydrates. Remember, I mentioned fiber is a type of carbohydrate, so fiber is going to be under that carbohydrate section. We want to look for foods that have 2 to 3 grams of fiber per serving. Typically, our whole grain foods are going to be higher in fiber. Okay, so that's another good clue for us there. And then other things on a nutrition facts label, whether we're looking for whole grains or not, we want to check the saturated fat and choose options that are lower in saturated fat. We also want to watch our sodium, okay, and try to choose options that are lower in sodium. If we're choosing minimally processed foods or those whole foods close to the form from the farm, they're naturally going to be a little bit lower in sodium, but anything in a package, always good to double check that sodium. Other things to watch out for would be added sugar, and we'll talk about that in a second. Quick things that you can keep on hand for when you're in a pinch. I really love these microwavable pouches of already cooked grains. They're usually like $2 to $3 at your local grocery store. I tend to, bring a bowl with me that I can just dump this into and microwave along with beans or some frozen veggies. Some quick cooking whole grains to have on hand. This is quinoa. This is millet. You can see it's kind of got this yellow color. And then this kind of angular grain is buckwheat. All of those cook in about 15 minutes. So 2 parts water or broth to 1 part of grain, and you're going to have a whole grain side on the table in about 2 minutes. Popcorn is also another whole grain, great snack. This is a purple popcorn, so you can get fun with that. Nuts and seeds, so pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, any other type of nut that you enjoy, just look for raw and unsalted. Those not only add some good healthy fats, but some texture and some protein. Texture is really important, especially when we're building salads. So I use a lot of nuts and seeds in that to make salads that are interesting and not boring. Some shelf-stable canned products. Having some tomato sauce on hand, whether that's a pasta sauce or this is just a tomato puree that's just tomatoes and salt. If you're opting for a pasta sauce, look for one that has no added sugar and doesn't have like an artificial sweetener or something with like a sugar alcohol like erythritol in it. Just make sure that the ingredients are just tomatoes, some vegetables. If they're using any oils, it's like an olive oil or spices. That's kind of what you want to look for there. Other canned things. So canned beans, again, minimally processed, can be really helpful when you're low on time for a quick, fast meal. There have been many a day where I have walked out my door with a can opener and a can of beans, which I know sounds silly, and one of those rice packets, and had that for lunch. So again, if you're needing to watch your sodium for hypertension, or you just want to watch your sodium in general, look for low sodium options here. Canned pumpkin can be a great way to add some of that fiber we were talking about to a breakfast. We'll make some energy bites that use pumpkin as well. Good in oatmeal or a savory breakfast. Canned vegetables are perfectly fine if you're choosing the low sodium option. So many grocery stores have low sodium versions of canned vegetables. This is a canned spinach. Again, with that lunch I was talking about with my can of beans and my rice packet, I'll often throw a can of the spinach in there. Again, if I don't have time, right? Because you don't have to refrigerate that. You just open it up when you're ready to eat it and it's good to go. Canned fruit would also work. Just when you're looking at the canned fruit, choose options that are canned in their own juices and don't have added sugar. So we talked about canned beans. That's a great protein option, high in fiber. You can also do dry beans. So these are lentils, different than the beans. These are brown lentils. They cook in about 20 minutes. There's also red lentils, which cook in about 10 minutes. The brown lentils tend to keep their structure and texture. The red lentils tend to kind of form one homogeneous dish. So they're a smoother texture once they're cooked. So think about that when you're making choices of where to use those lentils in your recipe. If you're using dry beans, often soaking them can help cut down on your cooking time. So an overnight soak goes a long way. If you have a pressure cooker or a multi-cooker or a slow cooker, all of those can also be good time-saving tools to help you decrease cooking time for beans from their dry form. In the multi-cooker, I think without soaking the beans, it maybe takes about half hour to cook the dry beans. All right, let's talk about some flavor ingredients. So fat, a lot of our flavor compounds are fat soluble, and we can get a lot of good healthy fats from our oils. So from our avocado oil and our olive oil, especially. I was actually, it's cool about olive oil. Both of these are really healthy. The avocado oil is great for higher temperature cooking. So if you're going to grill something or roast above 350 degrees, opt for your avocado oil. Below 350 degrees, light sauteing or finishing, making a salad dressing, your olive oil is going to be a good bet. And I was just reading an article about olive oil, and there's newer research showing that a half a tablespoon a day is associated with a 28% decrease in dementia. So not only do we get delicious flavor, but we're getting some disease prevention benefits from this olive oil as well. Other flavor ideas, a low sodium soy sauce or a coconut aminos if you're soy averse or want an even lower sodium option, that can be great. I love capers. Capers add salt, so you want to reduce the sodium, other sodium forms in recipes, but these add a nice little burst of, again, that sodium, a little like zing, because they're typically pickled. And you're getting a lot of quercetin from them as well, which is one of those phytonutrients that is so important for us. Olives, you're getting some good umami and healthy fats. These casavetranos are really buttery and are a great alternative to like a feta cheese in recipes. For salad dressings, in addition to your oils, having some vinegars on hand. So this is just a plain white vinegar. This is a rice vinegar. It's unseasoned. I don't think it's, yeah, it says sugar-free on here. So there's seasoned and unseasoned rice vinegars. Seasoned means it has sugar added to it, so opt for the unseasoned. And then you can also, there's all sorts of different vinegars. You could have red wine, white wine, apple cider vinegar. Just have a couple different vinegars on hand so that you have versatility in your sauce and your dressing making. Mustard doesn't have to be stone ground mustard. It could be a Dijon mustard, whatever type of mustard you like. Also a really great tool for making sauces, marinades, and dressings. Citrus. So when we're making salad dressings in a few months, we'll use both vinegar-based dressings and also citrus. We'll swap out the vinegar and use citrus for our acid. So lemon juice, orange juice is also a great tool. Also, these are really good, like I was mentioning earlier, for finishing dishes where we're maybe using brassicas that have a little bit of bitterness to them. The acid can help cut that bitterness. Shelf-stable non-dairy milks is a good thing to have on hand for baking, for adding to your coffee. This is just one brand of soy milk that I happen to like because it just is soy milk. There's no like thickeners, added sugars, gums, anything like that. When you're opting for a non-dairy milk, most important is to look for one that is unsweetened. A lot of them have added sugar, so make sure you're looking for ones that don't have added sugar. If you're opting for an oat milk, the oats, the way that they're processed, it looks like there's a lot of added sugar on the ingredients list there, but if you look at on the nutrition facts label, but if you look at the actual ingredients list, there's no added sugar. So that's just something to pay attention to and look at. All right, we're gonna end with a couple more things, and I know we're getting close on time here, but just a few more things to finish up. I promised we'd get to nut butters, so these are a really great way to add quick protein to a piece of whole grain bread for a breakfast in the morning, to throw into a smoothie. I honestly like using nut and seed butters when I'm making stir fry sauces. This is one type. So this is a Costco mixed nut butter. It has different seeds like hemp seeds and flax seeds and chia seeds and pumpkin seeds, along with some different nuts in it. You could do a peanut butter, it could be an almond butter. All of those are great ways to get some healthy fat and protein. Most important is that when you turn it around and you're looking at that ingredients list, it is just listing the nut or the seed, maybe some salt. Okay, we want to steer clear of options that have palm oil or any added sugar in them. A lot of brands are really kind of sneaky and they add that palm oil, which is a source of saturated fat, or they'll add in some sugar. So look for options that are just the nut or the seed, maybe some salt. In addition to a nut or seed butter, another option we can have on hand is tahini. This is ground sesame seed paste, really helpful for making creamy dressings without dairy. So if you're choosing to stay away from dairy, tahini can be a really helpful tool in making some creamy sauces. Another helpful tool in our toolbox for kind of some dairy-esque, some cheesy umami flavors without the cheese is nutritional yeast. So this is a deactivated yeast that is a source of B12, which is an essential vitamin, especially if you're choosing to go completely vegan, completely plant-based. B12 is often added to the nutritional yeast. This is great on top of pasta. I love it on popcorn. We'll make a like mac and cheese kind of sauce that includes this as well. A lot of great options. So good thing to have in your toolbox. All right, we did it. 1 minute over. We got through all of the things. The only thing we didn't really touch on was spices. And I'll just say, if you're new to spices, start with just a handful, like an Italian seasoning, a cumin, which is really common in a lot of Mexican cuisine, like a lot of our like refried bean kind of dishes. Maybe you want a chili powder for the same reason, garlic powder, onion powder, basil, those types of spices. If you start with some basics, get familiar, get comfortable with those, and then just like with our fruits and veggies, maybe you challenge yourself every month or every few months to add a new one to your repertoire. All right, I'm going to pause there and look at the chat. Oh great, Sarah, you have successfully found peanut butter that's just peanuts and salt. I'm so happy for you. It can be a quest sometimes, so I'm glad that you have found that. And Marilee and John, titanium cutting boards. That is a great question. So I have never used titanium cutting boards, but I'm thinking kind of like glass cutting boards, that they might lead to duller knives over time. So if you have one, if that's what you have and that's what you're comfortable using and not something you want to replace, then you might need to like sharpen your knives more frequently or just pay really close attention to honing them. But I don't think it's something you have to invest in if that's not already part of your repertoire. If you're looking to invest in a cutting board, a wood cutting board is what I would suggest. So feel free. Oh, good questions about the recording. So like I said, every class in this series is recorded, and we do our best to get the recording to you within a week. So by this time next week, you will have the recording. And when I send the recording, I will also send the link to the class website. So you have access to all of the resources for getting started, those additional videos on knife skills, and the links to those cookbooks. And that, again, that class website is going to be where all of our recipes are. So, I'm so glad that you found it helpful. I'm seeing some folks make some comments. You're so welcome. If you have any other burning questions, please feel welcome to drop that in the chat. I'll hang out for a few more minutes. But I also know we're a couple minutes over, so if you have to hop off, totally fine. I'm so glad that you're here. It's been wonderful hanging out with you tonight, and I really look forward to cooking with you throughout this year. So take good care, happy cooking, and I look forward to seeing you next month.